Mr. Huff is the second I would like to speak about. Mr. Huff, one of Parchment's shining achievements the moment he first walked into Parchment's halls. Parchment really won the lottery with him. Mr. Huff, every time we saw him, always had a smile on his face, and very rarely did he ever appear in the classroom without a smile on his face. I can proudly tell you all, as one of Mr. Huff's first students, he brought a lot of fun to the classroom, and the majority of us who were lucky enough to have his class for English or mythology, we looked at that hour as the hour of a blessing from God. There are no bounds that Mr. Huff would go to when it came to a student's education, and made it his very business to make sure each and every one of his students got the lessons that he put on that fabled chalkboard, or else they did not leave his classroom. Mr. Huff, by those very courageous acts, proved to us all that this is one of the very rare teachers who actually cared about what was going on in our minds and would jump through flaming hoops with the heart of a lion to make sure we were all in our right frame of mind before the hour went on to hit the books. These very acts of kindness and caring to us all earned him his fame among us from the very first time he walked into that classroom as time moved on. Mr. Huff, who always had a smile on his face, is a very perfect example of a man who definitely lives up to the very founding principles of what a teacher should be and represent: excellence, wisdom, caring, compassion, and above all, hope. When things got tough, Mr. Huff became the shining light of hope whenever one of us did poorly in his class on a test. One of Mr. Huff's many wise quotes in his class to us all was this: "There is no shame in trying if you failed the first time. You will have another chance." Mr. Huff became that shining beacon of hope for me during those times when I was afraid to even look at a test paper for fear of failing and shaming myself in front of everyone. Mr. Huff saw this from me one day as if I was looking death in the face. Even though he didn't approach me in front of the class, I knew what his intentions were when he got up from his desk chair and stood at the podium. Mr. Huff's words that very day to us all before a major test in his English class were, "Challenges are not there to stop you. They are there to see if you have the courage to defeat them. Be sure to do your best, everyone." And with those words of wisdom and another smile, he sat back down. To my surprise, when all was said and done, after a few days, we got our tests back. To my very surprise, I got an 80% on it. And as I looked up at Mr. Huff, he said with a smile and a chuckle, "You did very well and should be very proud of yourself." From that point on, I wasn't afraid like I was to take future tests in his class or anyone else's. As time went on, Mr. Huff's popularity among the students in those earlier years went through the roof, as he always was talked about, and how we couldn't figure out how and why he was always smiling whenever someone saw him. Even though it begged to question from those of us who were curious, the question soon disappeared, and we all saw how much better connected all of us were with him. Mr. Huff one day announced that he was putting together a play called Godspell and was accepting auditions from students of all grades to participate in it. And I can tell you all right now, since I was there, many of us jumped at the chance to participate, but few were seen to be gifted enough to remember their lines well enough. We weren't discouraged if we were turned away by Mr. Huff during those days. We just wanted Godspell to be an example of the excellence that Mr. Huff represented with whatever he did with us and for us. When the list was made of who got the parts in the play, the very next day it was announced that points would be awarded in the class for the students' participation, as was the announcement of the other English teacher. Many of us would have showed up regardless, for it based on the sole fact that Mr. Huff himself was the director who put it all together for us. And the very 4 nights it went on for, the play was packed. Mr. Huff himself was very surprised at the outcome of it all. In class, he thanked us all for taking the time to make Godspell the success that it was, and before he went to sit back down at his chair, I raised my hand and told Mr. Huff these very words in class in those days long past. "Mr. Huff, I think I speak for all of us when I say this. We didn't come because of the points you were offering to show up. We came because you, unlike many other teachers, connect better with us. We came because you make learning fun. And most importantly, we came because we like you and the way you teach." From that day forward, Mr. Huff, who earned his fame among the students of days long past, was more than just a teacher to me and my friends. Mr. Huff was revered as a friend and, most importantly, a father figure to us all. Based on that outcome, Parchment High School would not be the same without him.